K3soju just went first with one of the craziest high roll artifact combos you can possibly have in set 11 Inkborn Fable. Not to spoil too much, but it is one of the comps mentioned in my top 5 Exodia conditional comps that you should know for climbing rank. But to be honest, I only had seen it one time. Every other time, I've only been told about it and saw it only in the stats. So in this episode of In2D, let's hop on board with the TFT influencer and ask the ever important question, is it even that high roll?
I mean, it's actually not high roll.
We're hopping on board with Soju's POV. He's currently midstream and starting off with Artifact Anvil. You can tell he's midstream as well because I could barely see his eyebrows from the bottom of the screen. He's very much in the zone, if you will. Okay, so locking in, we're starting off with the Warden frontline holding on the Cho'Gath pair, nothing too crazy. With an Artifact Anvil star, you're always thinking about how do I best exploit the item that I get? The other question is he going to open it before his 2-1 augment or afterwards? Because if you take it before, you can potentially try to make something work with that item in particular, especially if it's a more generic item. But if you wait for afterwards, you could potentially pick a specific item that matches based off your augment. So it's a little bit down to your preference, but it also depends on what kind of carries and things you're willing to play. Some people are more conservative and they want to wait till after the augment. And we're going to break things down here. Hedge fund is a really safe economic open, but the problem with hedge fund in a lot of cases is that it does jumpstart your economy, but it's a really significant drop off of power. And it doesn't give you direction of what units you should be buying, what you should be playing towards. Hedge fund generically says, okay, you have a bunch of gold. Now, do I spend this for rerolling? Do I go to level 8? Do I even skip 8 and try to go to 9? The issue is that you're not going to get a meaningful power spike for a long time, so you might end up losing a lot of HP to get there in the process. So I don't really think you would take hedge fund in this spot, and I think that it's too low tempo, and you're just going to be taking a lot of damage before you get the payoff in like stage 4. Living Forge is actually quite good now because they buffed it to every 8-player combat instead of 10. So you're going to be getting it on average 1 more item every single game than before. And 1 extra artifact item can be really swingy. Not to mention that it gives you multiple chances at hitting a really powerful thing. So let's say you're going for Wits End Bard, but you have the option of also going for a frontline Tom Kench item and just gives you many chances to potentially set up a really powerful combination. Radiant Relics is a good item direction based augment. You get sword, glove, and cloak. And that means that he can start off really strong if he can get a 2-item carry going really early. Radiant Relics is really best with a carry item because it just gives you the ability to spike a carry's damage significantly both now and the late game. But you usually want like a 2-star to play around it or like some really powerful direction with a unit that's really broken. So if you get like a 3 cost, going back to the Bard example, Radiant Relics with Radiant Rage Blade is like a thumbs up. I want to go for that setup. You also can do Radiant Relics into generic items like a Covalent Spark and play around AP. But he does want to lean more into the AD line because he has a sword, glove, and a cloak open. So I think he's going to be leaning more towards AD than AP. So I'm okay with either Living Forge and Radiant Relics. Living Forge is, in my opinion, a little bit better because it's both fun and it has a high ceiling if you can continue to scale it. And Radiant Relics is also a safe, fine pick. So he rolls options 1 and 3, and he has Bruiser Crown and Stationary Support. Bruiser Crown is better if you already have like 2-star bruisers to play around because the tempo of Bruiser Crown is being ahead in the HP count and stats. You have, 4 bruiser when people are usually have enough damage to kill 2 bruisers. You're going to hit 6 bruiser really quickly, like early on at level 6 or 7, and then eventually get to 8 bruiser. And it's actually quite a powerful setup if you can play specifically around the bruiser on an 80 unit. You can get like bruiser on Kayn, bruiser on Irelia, so on and so forth. The only issue is that I think 1, he doesn't have a lot of bruisers, so it's going to be a little bit hard to snowball that. And 2, the items don't actually play well with it because he has a sword, glove, and a cloak, meaning that he would have a second Bloodthirster or an Infinity Edge or a Quicksilver. And that is not really powerful early on with his current setup because he doesn't have a good item holder for that. So I don't think Bruiser Crown here is as good, although it is a possible option that he could choose and force it because I think in these kinds of situations, you could probably just take Bruiser Crown and try to lean into it. Stationary Support is also pretty hit or miss. There's some combos that are just straight up really awkward and quite frankly bad. Unless you have a line that you can utilize a bunch of diverse support items like Duelist or melee compositions that can use all kinds of mix and match aura items and support stuff, it's not really good. So surprisingly, Stationary Support isn't a flex option. It's a very committal option. So I think Living Forge is still probably the best pick here. All right, with enough yapping, Living Forge it is. Double artifact. Let's pop it. He gets offered Intervening Locket, Diamond Hands, Blooding Jewel, and Luden's Tempest. Man, these are actually really interesting options because Intervening Lockets and Blighting Jewel are very situationally good if you want to lean into specific reroll comps for it. Innervating Locket is very good on Tom Kench, and you also can put it onto some other units as well. You can put it on like, you know, a frontline AP tank of all kinds like a Mumu and an Alawi. There's also an Innervating Locket Riven comp that people talk about as well, but I haven't really seen it before. Blinding Jewel is a really good Teemo item, but the problem is he doesn't have any tiers and he's really far away from that, like nothing that links to Teemo. So I think that it's a little bit hard to pick right now, because even if he got another tier on the carousel, it would have to be a double tier carousel, and that's pretty unlikely. The thing about this carousel, though, is that a lot of things could be possible. Like, it just could be double component. It could be another artifact and could be another support. And so it kind of encourages you to actually lose streak a little bit. So he might be factoring into that as to what item he wants to pick. The generic pick is Diamond Hands, though, and I think that one is the safest because it generates gold and gives you guaranteed frontline, because then you could also make some backline items with this. Luna's Tempest is very situational and ends up being a item that you don't really want to pick unless you're trying to play for like a giant amount of burst. Like Luna's Tempest is theoretically like really good on units that potentially can do high amount of burst, like Zoe was an example, or maybe even Lilia if you overkill, but not really good right now. Okay, so he goes for Diamond Hands, which I really like. Diamond Hands gets your economy to 10 really early as well, which could be really, really good. And I just think that's overall just the most versatile safe pick. He pops the second Anvil. Now we're introduced with another Luna's Tempest, which I don't think we're going to pick. Suspicious Trenchcoat, Horizon Focus, and Corrupt Vampiric Scepter. Oh my god, actually, he has a really nasty combo of Diamond Hands and Suspicious Trenchcoat, because Suspicious Trenchcoat will split and give you the gold of all of those individual units with Diamond Hands. So you can actually farm infinite gold now. Horizon Focus is a pretty underrated item. I think people sleep on this item a lot. Not only is it good like late game on units like Nautilus, but you could put it on early game unit like Rek'Sai and get a ton of value and damage. And then if you are playing any comp that includes Lux, the stun from Horizon Focus ends up being very powerful with the damage combo on Lux as a secondary damage source, not as a primary. And then Corrupt Vampiric Scepter actually does technically work with these items. He could do Corrupt Vampiric Scepter into, say, Gnar, which would be nuts because he would have the Quicksilver plus Corrupt Vampiric Scepter. But he does need Rageblade going. Let's see if he actually knows this combo, by the way.
Oh. Bro, if I had Innervating... Oh, wait. I have... Oh, my... It procs 3 times. I'm pretty sure I actually want to play a weaker board, so it guarantees 3 gold.
So look at this. He actually is going to be able to split that Garen, get a gold for that split. And if this Garen also goes down in HP, you'll also be able to get gold off of them individually. So we farmed, what, like 2 gold that round? Oh my god, this combo was ridiculous. He's basically just going to generate 3 to 4 extra gold per turn while having a win streak, because it's going to be hard to deal with all of these units. I mean, look at him. He's actually sitting up right now. I see his full face. A rare occurrence where I can actually see Soju's chin. Amazing. He's also coming up on an encounter carousel, so even though he's sold for 30 and he's making a weak board, he's actually improving his pick for a potential powerful swing on the carousel. Let's say it's like a Radiant item or another artifact that could be an insane combo. I mean, this spot is ridiculous. It is insane. It's one of the best spots I've seen all set. He does end up losing only by a couple units, though, and is at 89. The carousel is all 2-star units instead. This is usually something you want to take to spike your board, but he's not actually trying to win streak, so he might just take it for the component value. He takes a bow. Bow is generic. You could actually play AD with this. One thing to note about these kinds of spots is that if you are playing from really far ahead economics like this, the number one thing to pay attention to is try to play an uncontested line. This set with all the bag size and everything, it's just so punishing to be in a good spot economically, but then play a contested line. Someone did the math and they said that if you are 2-way contested, the extra copy for a 4-cost unit is going to cost you 10 gold on average. And if you are 3-way contested, it's 25 gold. So that's why it feels so bad if you're 3-way contested. You're rolling like 50, 60 gold, and yet it feels like you just can't hit at all. If someone just has that extra copy of a unit on their bench, let's say you're 3-way contested for Ashe, someone else is just holding Ashe because they see other people are playing it, that's costing you on average 25 gold, which is ridiculous. And that's partially why there's so many bad feelings about people's roll downs, because you don't even know what's on their bench, let alone in people's shops. If someone just has it in their shop and pulling those units out of the pool effectively, you're just not going to hit. Anyways, I'm not trying to make this a rant about bag sizes at all. It's just explaining to you why it's really important for Soju to try to not overcommit and figure out what he should be playing based off what's available to him and combo that with his items. All right, so we prioritize going for Ghostly, and right now I think Ghostly is actually just quite a generic shell because you could play Ghostly plus any other carry. You could play Ghostly plus AP units like Zoe and Zyra is currently a very popular AP duo in the back line because it's cheap and really effective for bursting. You can also play, Ghostly plus AD units like Ashe and Kaisa, or you could just sell it all and just have Ghostly play as a current vehicle, and then later on transition to something else. These could all just be item holders. Based off his items, he has 2 swords, bows, cloaks, gloves, vests. This has to be AD, and I think he would want to slam 2 AD items. He's trying to think about what board he wants to play. I wonder if he's trying to tailor his board because he plays like a Teemo 1, and he did check his Ink Shadow tattoo, which was a tattoo of bombardment, not slamming any items. I guess another thing that he's thinking about is he regularly wants to keep his board a little bit on the weaker side because the weaker his board is, the more guarantee he's going to get off this Diamond Hands gold proc. But right now he's trying to get a good glimpse of what's happening. He's going up against Duelist, for example, with Last Whisper and the Tristana Slam, seeing that Teemo, that Fade line we talked about. Taking a look at 3-2 Augments, Tiny Titans rolling for days, and Late Game Specialists. It's really funny that he could take Tiny Titans and theoretically greed and try to go for like a fast 9. This actually might be one of the most Soju games of all time if he ends up taking Tiny Titans. Rolling for days, I think, is probably just weaker than Late Game Specialist. It's 18 gold, and this game feels like we're trying to leverage and go to level 9. I don't feel like we're going to be spending that much time rolling for low-cost units as well. So I think value of rolling for days, there's twofold. Either one, use it now or use it in the near future for like a level 8 roll down. If you're going to wait to get to 9 anyways, then you might as well take Late Game Specialist. And I think Soju's in a spot where you could possibly take Late Game Specialist. So I'm not really sure about rolling for days. I don't think I would go for that. I actually kind of like the idea of Tiny Titans because it does end up translating to more gold. Tiny Titans is 30 HP, which is worth around 3 rounds of interest gold as well as streak bonuses. So if you think about the 5 gold you get off of your interest plus the 3 gold that you get for the streaking, it's kind of the same as Late Game Specialist with like the cushion of having extra life if you actually really want it. And you don't have to necessarily wait till 9 to get that value. So it's roughly equivalent to Late Game Specialist. It's actually funny that these are all like heavy econ ones, so I wonder what he'll choose to keep. It looks like he rolls options 2 and 3, and I think he wants to go for Tiny Titans. Pandora's items are actually interesting because he didn't slam. This is actually theoretically a time you could take Pandora's at 3 too, because he has so many components he hasn't committed, so he could change them and hard force into another line forcibly that's uncontested. As a lot of people right now have basically committed to the line that they want to play, if they're committing to reroll or some kind of 4-cost carry, Pandora's allows you to play that uncontested line and theoretically get your best items. Golden Remover is better for a win streak tempo-based strategy where you're trying to play from ahead, and that's because you're trying to slam your items, win your rounds, and then remove the items off your 2 stars without having to sell them. So if you're like playing a Kindred 2 and you have a Golden Remover, you don't have to sell that Kindred, and then you could just move it to a Syndra and then instead have an entire strong board. Not to mention that if you have Golden Remover for other things in the late game, like a support item, you get offered like a Zephyr and Shroud from a carousel. Ends up being really good there as well. He doesn't end up committing to Tiny Titans, which I think is correct. I think right now, in his mind, Tiny Titans is the same as Late Game Specialist, but gives him that flexibility of when he wants to roll and how much HP he actually wants to play with. And it might be one of those situations where he might get the equivalent of that Late Game Specialist gold anyways, while having more effective HP and time to build his composition. Looks like he's going to tech into Ink Shadow and try to kill some units. The thing about it is that Tiny Titans, just because you have more HP, doesn't mean you want to like freely keep losing by 6-7 units every single round, because that does add up over time. So looks like he is going to slam his items, the Last Whisper and the Deathblade. The one thing to consider is that he is 1 round away from an encounter, which can give him other items. But I feel like any other item combination is going to be rare for him to not slam those items, because Last Whisper and Deathblade have such good synergy with, shredding the armor and dealing damage, that it'd be very unlikely that this encounter changes those items. So he's going to commit to it and slam it. Azir grants 6 free rerolls that last until used. So this means that not picking Rolling for Days is probably good. So because you already get that value of it, if you pick Rolling for Days, this would have been lower value than usual because he already had so many free rerolls. This allows him to almost have the best of both worlds. He's thinking about whether or not he wants to go to level 7, because level 7 is actually quite cheap here. One of the things about leveling off interval is that a lot of times it really does cost you only 1 gold if you know you're going to get to the next level anyways, and you're so well positioned economically that it's not that punishing. So in this case, Soju is going to be making 3 to 4 gold every single round because of the diamond hands. That's extra. So he's really actually super far ahead economically. 2, playing another extra unit might help him preserve HP because he's trying to, power level from this point and get to level 8, level 9. And then he's going to be getting to level 8 anyways. If you're going to be rolling ever on 7, like for a 3-cost reroll, over leveling is going to be really inefficient because that 2/4/6 XP that you would have had could have been gold instead. So Soju's in a spot where he knows that he's going to skip his next level. That's fine for him as a green light to go ahead and push for this early level 7. Next, Anvil popped is Horizon Focus, Infinity Force, Prowess Claw, and Lichbane. Starting from the left, Horizon Focus is actually not bad if you have a good holder of it, but right now, no unit really stuns except Volibear, so a little bit awkward. Again, Horizon Focus, very powerful, but specific units use it. Infinity Force is actually fine to pick up. Ends up being better on melee units. If we're going to be playing things like Silas, we could actually go for a triple artifact item combination like Suspicious Trenchcoat, Diamond Hands, and Infinity Force. Powder Call is interesting because it's a pretty unexplored item, and the fact that you can cleanse debuffs and then teleport is really powerful for melee assassins, but I don't think he's going to use that. Like, Powder Claw ends up being powerful base stats for Caitlyn, but you don't want her teleporting because she's a sniper. And then Lichbane is just not applicable because it's for low mana spam casting units like Kindred, for example, so you don't really want Lichbane. So I think Infinity Force is probably the pick here. He ends up going for Infinity Force, and I think that's just correct because he just can't really use Horizon Focus that well, even though it's also a really powerful item. Ends up putting the Infinity Force onto the Amumu because he wants to put the tattoo onto Caitlyn. Might as well just put 3 items onto Amumu and give him a little bit more stats. And the Amumu does a really good job tanking enough. And look at this, Soju with a 1-unit loss. That's actually perfect. Well done. If he does that one more time, he gets a full 5 loss streak going into the end of stage 3, and he's going to be in a really good spot to get to level 8 with a ton of gold, like 80-90 gold. And I think he also potentially is thinking about just a true fast 9, something that we haven't really seen quite some time because true fast 9s are really hard to pull off on the current tempo of the set. Everyone just has so many gold and resources and so many items for things level 8 and below. To get to 9, you have to roll like a board of like 70-80 gold, which is going to be hard to get. And even if you do get it, these boards are so powerful on average because of all the items and gold that they have that unless you hit 2-star 5-cost across the board, you're not going to actually win many fights. Soju's opening up his team planner and putting Storyweaver units in it with Lysandra. And so now it's pretty clear the direction that he wants to go. He's been holding Sivir 2 and Zyra and Garen on the bench for quite some time now, since the beginning of the game. And that's because he wants to go for a 7 Storyweaver Tome of Mending Kale to go for a crazy revive-based strategy. This Suspicious Trenchcoat splits into 3 Lysandras, and that ends up counting as the death. So you end up reviving that Lysandra. She splits again, and then you are able to get many Lysandras onto the board. I actually made a video that covers exactly this tech, so it's really cool to see this in action because I've only seen it a few times. And every single time, it blows my mind when you actually watch it in action. It's super fun. Soju gets a vow, and it's actually good because that vow is a 3rd item. If you have Lysandra and she splits into a bunch of different units, and you don't have like mana to cast, then she just ends up splitting and dying. So you really want that Protector's Vow alongside the Suspicious Trenchcoat. Ash reveals your upcoming opponents for the rest of the game. That actually ends up being a good thing for Soju as well because he gets to position very thoughtfully and also play around anything that's trying to potentially snipe his units. Going ahead and breaking down this augment situation. Stand United, he's going to be playing Vertical Storyweaver, so it's going to be weaker than usual. The nice thing about it is that it does buff the Kale, but this is 7 Storyweaver Kale with Tome of Mending, so it's a little bit less emphasis on the carry Kale. Warden Crest is not really applicable, so I don't really think it's 1 or 3 here. Keepers is actually fine and ends up allowing you to clump your units while solo frontlining a specific unit. He ends up rolling options 1 and 3. We got Heavy Hitters and Crash Test Dummies. Heavy Hitters is better for 3-star units in general, unless you're playing like a strategy that leans into a lot of HP like Bruisers. Crash Test Dummies is actually totally fine as well, but Crash Test Dummies is much more for like fast burst compositions or comps that struggle with having good frontline. And we have pretty good frontline. We have a Lysandra that's going to be splitting and be tanking while ceasing a bunch of things. So we don't really need Crash Test Dummy. So I feel like Keepers makes the most sense here. Soju takes Keepers, still banking his roll, still not rolling his gold. still trying to get to level 9. He's going up against people who have Janet 3, Alune 3, so there's a lot of powerful spikes happening in the lobby. He's also positioning keepers towards the front now, and I think this is wise because he's now getting to the phase of the game where people are rolling their gold, and we kind of went back to the previous explanation, is that you don't want to make your board so fragile, so weak that you don't kill any units at all. So he's trying to keep his entire army focused on one side to kill units. He's not spreading things out, right? Like, yeah, he has keepers, but let's say he didn't have keepers. He doesn't spread things out this entirety of the mid game. He's trying to keep everything on one side so that he can kill as many units as he possibly can. In this situation, he killed 1 unit, which is not great, but at least he is still healthy enough from the Tiny Titans. And I think now we're probably going to have to go at 4-5 to level 9, because if we wait 3 more rounds, on average, we're going to lose like 10 to 13 HP. So if we end up waiting to the end of stage 4, we're going to be at like single-digit life. And while that is Soju's MO, I don't think that it's advisable right here. I think that would be a potential throw from a spot that should be a guaranteed top finish. Lichbane Kindred. Man, some of these comps are really insane. This is going to be a very powerful lobby because of the artifact start and prismatic. You can start to see some people getting powerful combos online. And then another person hit Teemo 3 with Blooding Jewel. So this is one of those situations where Soju has to stabilize relatively quickly. On Carousel, we don't have Irelia. I think he was also sacking to see if he can get Irelia off Carousel. Did not hit it. Irelia ends up being the limiting factor a lot, but he also doesn't have Galio, so it theoretically could miss on that unit as well. Man, this Soju guy sat up the entire game so far. He's really, really engaged. He's actually going through all the things he needs to go for his roll down here. All right, level 9, and we're going to roll. Right? We're not rolling? Okay, a little bit of a delayed roll. I was very surprised to see this. Okay, we hit Riven 2. He's skipping a bunch of the 5 cost. The board that you want to play is just the 7 Storyweaver plus Lysandra. And then either another unit that ties in with Irelia or like Rakan is really a common way for you to play the board. Finds Lysandra, which is great, but like if he rolled a little bit quicker, he would be able to get that Lysandra and maybe start snowballing a little bit of that loot or even preserve more HP. So Soju a little bit slow on the gun. I think Soju should be buying this Rakan because a lot of times it's the 7 Storyweaver units plus Rakan and Lysandra. Okay, he ends up buying it. No, he ends up selling it. It's fine. We're still looking for Irelia anyways. And we have the Irelia and we can go ahead and just slot her in immediately and get to 7 Storyweaver. Full transition, selling the board, and he's been prepping this entire time. And finally, we get the Tome of Mending with the Lysandra in. I see. So he wants to keep the Amumu for the Porcelain, so that the Lysandra ends up getting the Porcelain stats. I see. Okay, that's fine. That makes sense. And here we go. Lysandra splits. Tome of Mending revives, and the Lysandra comes back again, and Lysandra splits again. And now all of a sudden, you see all these Lysandras, all these teapots. Are we farming any items? Any gold? We get 1 item. We get a little bit of gold.
How is my KO dead? Okay, it doesn't matter. I won the game. Okay, the game's over. The game's over. It's actually over.
Okay, so Soju thinks he won the game. As long as he's able to 2-star his board, I think he's actually pretty close to being correct here. He's at 10 HP, so he's at 1 life, but as long as he's able to stabilize, hit 2-star Lysandra, hit 2-star Irelia, he'd be good to go. I like that he's rolling down on creep rounds as well because he is going to be printing so much gold anyways, and he had so much gold to roll that he just wants to be quick on it, as opposed to waiting for other people to potentially pull some of his legendaries out of the pool. So if he's, waiting for another round, people might be rolling and picking up Irelia's, and hitting Irelia 2 is really crucial. Oh my gosh, he actually needs to win this round. He's at 10 HP. This is the most crucial round of the entire game for Soju right now. If he loses this fight, he is guaranteed dead, 10 base damage, and he won't be able to make this Irelia 2. But if he can make this Irelia 2 and live long enough, he's good to go. He has Morellonomicon to make for anti-heal. Oh, he actually makes a guard breaker on Irelia. Okay. Instead moving into Zoe. I see that. Because he wants to get maximum amount of damage onto Irelia. Oh my god. And look at this. Lysandra ends up living so much that we didn't even proc all this Diamond Hands value. Someone has 7 Lilias in the lobby, so someone might go for Lilia 3. Here comes another Artifact Anvil. Oh my god, this is starting to heat up real quick. And I think with this... Oh man, if we waited 1 more round, we could have gotten something like Sniper's Focus onto Irelia, which would have been also really huge. I think maybe like Zhonya's or Blooding Jewel may make sense. Blooding Jewel could be good just for the amount of MR reduction, since Lysandra does a bunch of magic damage and you have Zoe. So I think I'd go for Blooding Jewel or Zhonya's here. Soju's hovering over Tome of Mending to read it closer. I think this is actually a really important point. Every seconds, revive the strongest ally that hasn't been revived yet at 50% of their maximum health. At the time of this video, Tome of Mending is defined in TFT currently as the unit that has the most amount of items. And so right now, if it would revive the strongest ally that hasn't been revived yet, it should be guaranteed onto Lysandra because she's holding 3 items. If you have multiple units that are holding 3 items, is I think the most recently played. So you might see him do things like take a unit out, put it back in to try to like order what is actually the strongest. So he ended up taking Zonia's and he hovered over the Zoe, but kind of recognized that he'd rather just put it on Galio for now. Okay, this Yone and Kane board is almost at full power. Yone 3 has 2 items, Kane has 2 items. Trying to get through all of the madness here, but there's also another secondary benefit of all this Lysandra nonsense, is that Lysandra, her ability, the very bottom part of it, if you read it, is that if there's one enemy remaining and she casts on it, you guarantee get that kill. She always wins 1v1s. Okay, it's time. We hit Lysandra 2. Our board is complete. We've 2-starred pretty much everything. I do like the inclusion of the Amumu to make her a little bit stronger with the porcelain. And now we're off to races. We just kind of sit back, relax, and just watch the show. Going up against Dragon Lord Janna reroll, which is just not going to have enough DPS to get past it. The Diamond Hands naturally sort of counters the Janna because it just stops the burst from one-shotting things. So, like, Janna has to get through all of them. Just look at what's going on. He's also printing so many items, and he's printing all this gold. He's going to be able to get to level 10. In fact, this is probably one of those games where he could probably chase, like, a 3-star 4 cost, like Galio 3, or maybe even a 3-star Legendary. This is an encounter carousel that offers a full completed item as well. Ends up going for an Adaptive and a Bloodthirster. He probably feels comfortable putting a 3rd item on Galio because the Galio does have a Zonia, so he's unlikely to die. He does end up doing the trick we talked about by taking out the Lysandra and putting it back in, and then making her the 3rd tiebreaker, the strongest, if she ties with Galio. But he has to be mindful of not actually putting 3 items on Galio. Despite the fact that he has the Zonias, I would still be going on the safe side personally. I would just try to just itemize other people. Like Adaptive can go on, Mumu or Zyra. Like BT can go somewhere else. I think this is a little bit unnecessary because there's a possibility that that it doesn't actually go according to plan. But I think it's fine. Lysandra ends up getting revived again. She gets split. There's so much madness onto the board. And you know what? Galio, like, having these 3 items and just being behind, I think ends up being totally fine. So, watching it in practice, I was a little bit afraid, but it looks totally okay. Okay, Soju has a Rakon in shop, just getting ready to go to level 10 here because there's nothing for him to roll at 9 anymore. I mean, just look at these fights. They're just not close at all. I mean, they're not even getting through, like, the Lysandras to proc his Diamond Hands. That's how far ahead he is. He has 5 Lysandras on the board. No, wait, 6 because of the revived one. This is ridiculous. Like, what are you supposed to do? It's actually insane. Like, if you can get the conditions to line up, this is such an Exodia build. It's outrageous, but it's also so rare. You're probably going to only be able to pull it off once or maybe twice at best per set. So Soju is now scouting around to actually see if he needs to grief other people's units because he recognizes the only way he could possibly lose is if other people hit something really crazy like a Kane 3, a Lilia 3. He's holding Nautilus as well in case they're going for Nautilus 3 because Nautilus could mess him up with his positioning. Soju pops his items. Nothing really standing out here, so maybe just something generic. It actually kind of doesn't really matter. Maybe I'd itemize like Riven in this case, like maybe Edge of Night Riven or a Shiv, just so he can get a little bit more magic shred in case something happens to Galio. But you can see like he's not even making his Last Whisper on his bench because he doesn't even really need it. He is really clumped, but this is not a composition that punishes his clump with a loon because a loon hits the lateral row instead of like a big giant AoE clump. Oh my god. Now we're at the point where we're literally not losing any of the Lysandras, and there's just like 6 or 7 of them onto the board. His lead is snowballing at this point. Okay, so now we're rolling on 10, and now we're officially chasing Lysandra 3, 8 Canes. Oh, Soju's actually committing to Thieves Gloves onto Sivir, which is actually interesting because if you're going to be farming components, you actually have the ability to build like the correct items instead of actually going for Thieves Gloves. He's actually going to run out of item space pretty soon. Also, I'm kind of down for Soju to let someone hit Kane 3 because I think that'd be fun to watch Kane 3 versus this board. Okay, 7 Lysandras. The thing is, if someone holds a single Lysandra, there's 9 copies in the pool. He's not going to hit Lysandra 3. Also, he's not like econing back up. Like, he could have potentially saved a bunch of gold. If you go back to the way Dish Soap played for his 3-star legendary, the video that we talked about where he hit Hui 3, he ended up using the excess gold to make sure that he can manage his economy to get the max amount of chance to hit his 3-star legendary. Soju's just rolling it down to 0 every single turn because he is printing a lot of gold, but at the same time, he's not like maximizing his gold counts right now. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that he's on thin ice because he's at 10 HP, doesn't want to lose a single time. No Lissandra off carousel. He's down to the last 3 players. He can take this porcelain and cut a Moo and instead play, you know, Soraka for another altruist. I think that'd be a good move here, or a duelist for Irelia. Plus, it's 5 gold. He is rolling to 0 as well because, you know, there is something to be said about trying to hit it as fast as possible because someone could find Lissandra in the shop. Ah, I see. So he's just going to go the opposite direction and play around 4 porcelain instead. So he's going to go for porcelain onto Riven. And now we're 1 Lissandra off. I don't think the game's going to even last like 5 more rounds. So I think Hui is off the table. I think we just have to do it naturally. Just find it in the shop. I like it. He's using the gold mid-round to roll to see if he can get it and lock it in the shop because that way no one else can take it from him. He has 8 Lissandras. Please, one more time. Please, one more Lissandra. Another Living Forge artifact, by the way. Daysake Wukong 2. Manazane for Lux could be potentially clutch. Okay, Daysake is still at 8 canes. Has Soju really not found any canes since? I don't think he has. One thing to note as well is that this cane does not have Edge of Night. So if something locks onto the target for him, oh, he rolls. He rolls and finds Kane. He's going to deny the Kane. Okay, rolling to 0 and does not find Lissandra. I think, man, how insecure is this guy? Just let him hit Kane 3, man. You already hit the Exodia of Exodias. All right, another round, another chance. And there it is, Lissandra 3. I mean, this setup is just insane. I guess he's going to try to surprise his opponent with Lissandra 3. Like, oh no, do I hit it or not? Just give his opponent, just let his opponent roll all of his gold. Oh, he actually didn't end up selling his cane, by the way. There's no cane on his bench. All right, Lissandra 3. I got to have audio on for this one. Oh no, his opponent conceded? No way. What? Basic. Oh god, we don't even get to see it in action. Oh, I'm so tight right now. I kind of want to see this happen.
He knows that I had to well, he knows that I have it because the thing is I was making 10. Fuck. I had to buy a unit to make it look like I'm out of gold. Like, it's so fucking obvious.
Oh, that's it. Come on, Soju, where's the reactions? So there you have it. Soju plays one of the most insane artifact combos you'll ever see in all of the sets. I can't believe he managed to pull off a 3-star legendary with it as well at high challenger. Really impressive stuff. If you like these situational crazy Exodia artifact combos, check out this other video I did that might help point you into other directions. Oh, and if you're on the receiving end of someone else having a 3-star legendary, just let them have their fun, man. It's so cool to watch it. How often do we get to hit this combo? Just let them play it out. Come on, Daysik. Thanks for watching this edition of Into Deep, and I'll see you guys next time.